Obviously disappointed coming off a loss. Then I wasn't real happy. Like I said, after the game, we tried, but we weren't very connected in how we played. And unfortunately, we've played 4 non-conference road games. And in 4 non-conference road games, we've been outshot from the foul line 128 to 57. So it's hard to win on the road if you don't get to the foul line. It's something we had gotten past it. One of the reasons we were fortunate to win at Florida and at Vanderbilt was that we did shoot free throws. But that hampered this team in November and December, was our inability to shoot free throws away from home. And it kind of resurfaced on Saturday. So hopefully we can get back to playing the right way, which we're going to have to. Tennessee gets to the foul line. So we have to offset one of their strengths, which is shooting free throws, by being clean with our coverages defensively, being able to rebound, and then shoot free throws against them, which is not easy to do.
Frank, you've coached a lot of great big men. You've coached against a lot of great big men. Where does Grant Williams rank in the guys that you've seen?
Yeah, he's good. He's fun to watch. It's I'm not one of these new wave analytic guys that believes. It's funny. Here's what's funny. They usually have 2 guys somewhere near the paint, but yet offensively, they score with the best of them. Funny that the floor doesn't get polluted with guys posting up. It's I love watching him play. He plays with his back to the basket. He's aggressive. He knows how to use his body. He's what he kind of reminds me of. A bigger, when I say bigger, I don't mean just height-wise, but also just weight-wise, Michael Carrera. He's just relentless in there. Just after the ball, posting up, the way he attacks offensively, he's good. He's good. He's good on defense. And then he makes all his free throws. Heck, I don't think I've ever seen anyone. I watched that game when it was being played. Shoot so many free throws and not miss like he did against Vanderbilt. But he's good.
Coach, one of the themes it seems throughout this season is when you guys prepare and are focused and pay attention to detail in practice, the result usually is good. And on the flip side, when it's not, you see what you kind of saw on Saturday. Why do you think for this team this season it's been a struggle to be consistent in the preparation leading up to games?
Freshmen. It's part of the deal. Ask John Calipari. He'll tell you. He coaches 7 new ones every single year. It's that's what happens when when your team is dependent on first-year guys contributing. And when Trey Campbell, he's being asked to do things a way that's different than where he was at before. And I have no idea what he was asked to do at Georgetown. I have no idea. But I know they had structure. That's why they were perennially an NCAA team with JT3 in charge. Did I just make up a word there? Perennially. Is that? That's a word? I kind of caught myself there. Math. That's, and we've gotten a lot better at it. It's not like we were bad going into Oklahoma State. Like we were bad going to Wyoming. When I mean bad, we were awful in our preparation going to Wyoming. It wasn't that bad, but it's not what it had been for the 6 weeks leading into that game. It wasn't the way it needed to be to win a high-level game away from home. And so that's why, we didn't get it done. But we got to figure that one out. We can't, that's a bug that bit us that we control, and that's the fouls we commit and then getting to the foul line. Can't think about that. Wyoming, well, a 4-point game, 5-point game, something like that. Obviously, Oklahoma State, we shoot a 3 with 40 seconds to go to tie the game. Michigan was a pretty good game. I know we lost by 9, 10. I don't remember what it was, but it was a pretty good game. We've been outshot by 70 free throws in 4 games. Can't do that. Can't do that. You got to. That number has to be a little closer to be able to win on the road, to win anywhere, let alone the road.
You talked obviously a lot about Chris's fouls this season. How important in a game like this, where he's going up against a guy like Grant Williams or an Admiral Schofield, where he has to be, how important is it for him to be a little bit smarter in how he plays them and not picking up fouls early?
Yeah, I mean, Grant is just like Chris, plays with the same aggression, same style. One of the greatest compliments that's ever been paid to my teams was not this preseason before last year, us coming off the Final Four. And Rick Barnes said at Media Day, our deal here is to build our program the way Frank built South Carolina. That's one of the biggest compliments that's ever been paid to anything I've done. Number one, because I respect the heck out of Rick Barnes. And number two, because here's this new coach that's a Hall of Famer coming into the SEC where he's never coached in. And he's not saying we got to use the blueprint that was used at Kentucky or Billy Donovan at Florida or Bruce when he was at Tennessee, or he said the one we used. That to me was unbelievable. Now you go watch them play. That same team came here 2 years ago, and we had our way with them. Those same group of kids have stayed the course, and now they're the number 1 team in the country. And, we play very similar styles. Watching them on film, it's funny. It's look like I'm watching our team practice, some of the things we do offensively and defensively. But Grant Williams stays out of foul trouble. He plays with the same aggression Chris does, but he does a better job with his hands. Chris tends to grab too much and gets him in trouble. Grant understands there's a place to be physical, and there's a place where you get over the top when it's physical. Grant understands how to get to that place and stop. Chris, for whatever reason, always has that extra of physicality, which gets him in trouble. And it's no secret. They need Grant to stay in the game. We need Chris to stay in the game. Pretty simple formula.
Frank, speaking of Rick Barnes, you have experience coaching against him when he was number 1 and beat him, I think, in 2010 with Texas. What do you recall about that game? And at that time, obviously, you guys are playing a real high level at K-State, and it's kind of comes full circle tomorrow night.
It makes me understand why I respect him the way I do. That we were both in another league, and he was number 1 in the country, and now we're both in the same league, and he's number 1 in the country again. That's that was a great night for K-State. That was a great night. It's a great moment anytime you have the number 1 team in your building. Great opportunity. We had similar opportunity with Virginia here, a month ago or whatever it was. The biggest difference. My point guard was 23 years old. My 2 guard was a 3-year starter. My small forward was 22 years old. My power forward was 22 years old, and my starting center was 23 years old. The guy came off the bench was a McDonald All-American. That's the biggest difference. Rodney Magruder never got in the game. You understand what I'm saying? He just wasn't ready to play as a true freshman. That team I had back then, the starting 5 were old. And they were strong, and they've been through it together. I don't have that age group on our team this year. We probably don't have the depth that team had, but that's okay. I'm real happy with the version of us that we are becoming, and we just have to go out there and play through our strengths, We got to keep them. We can't commit. They're going to shoot free throws, is what they do. We can't do what we did the other night and have our center commit 3 consecutive hand checks at 50 feet from the basket and put them at the foul line for no reason. That's how you lose. And we got to stay away from those plays.
You mentioned that foul stat, and a lot of that obviously comes with playing on the road and the way the game is called differently. How much of a teaching tool is that to kind of get the guys to control the things that they can control versus trying to be overzealous defensively but also be more aggressive offensively?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the visiting building, the emotion of the building adds a lot to the game. When you go into Michigan, and there's 14,000 people and 2 Gamecock fans. There's a certain emotion coming out of that building. You go to Oklahoma State, there's an emotion that they have for their home team in that building. And what happens is we're human beings. I don't care how much you shut it off. Everyone's going to be impacted by the emotion of the building. The visiting team, the problem is you tend to get overzealous. You get overly aggressive defensively, overly aggressive offensively, so you end up making mistakes on offense and then mistakes on defense. Mistakes on defense is you don't communicate, or you're trying to communicate but somebody doesn't hear. So now someone's late on a rotation, which we were. Crucial play of the game, Giagua for 3, or you get overzealous because of the aggression in the building and you go commit silly fouls. That has to stop, and that's where experience kicks in. Older guys are not as impacted by the emotion of the building. They're more into the game itself. And if you go back and you break down the Oklahoma State game film, I'm not blaming, but we had bad breakdowns in our zone defense by freshmen. They gave their shooters open threes. They still had to make them, but they made them. And then we had some bad breakdowns where we committed some bad fouls 50 feet from the basket, which now gives 88% foul shooters 2 easy free throws. That's you can't do that. You can't do that. But that's where the emotion comes into play. But you can't. I don't care where we play the game. It's hard to win when you get outshot from the foul line by such a large number. Hard to win. We've got to be better there.
With Grant, is he one of the smartest, most savvy players that you've gone against, and what do you think makes him that way?
Yeah, well, the first thing that when you see players get better the way he has, obviously they're intelligent because they understand. They're willing to accept coaching. They don't run away from challenges, and they're constantly pushing to grow. That's how you get better. He's continued to grow, continued to get better. He's become a more efficient player. The second part to his whole deal is the physicality part of the game doesn't bother him one bit. Some guys, when the game is physical, they exit stage left. He's the other way. The more physical it gets, the taller and stronger he stands. Actually, their team is that way, and I think that's a big reason is him. But no, I think it's hard to double him because he doesn't play out of pace, doesn't get rattled, doesn't play in a rush. So when you double him, he usually makes the right pass out of the double. Some guys you double them because they can't pass or they'll take bad shots. He's going to do neither when you double him. Doesn't mean he's going to make the positive play, but he's not going to be rattled and throw a bad pass or take a bad shot. We got to be. He's one of those guys that makes your job really hard, and because he plays, it's funny, is him and Chris probably do as well a job as anyone in this league as far as playing with their back to the basket, as far as their not just their skill, but their willingness to do it over and over and over and over. And it's no surprise that they're both first-team All-League players. That one was Player of the Year, the other one was Defensive Player of the Year. It's no surprise that it's we've fallen in love in a day and age where everything is, analytics and floor spacing and all that mumbo jumbo that sounds real good because it's different. You know what happens? When things are different, they always sound good. Hey, oh, wow, what a great idea. Yeah, it's different. It's not the boring old basketball that everyone's played before. So it sounds good. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but at the end of the day, the game's won in the paint on offense and defense. Whoever protects the rim on defense and whoever attacks the rim on offense is going to win the game. And it's fun to see those two guys continue to improve as players and dominate games the way they do when they're on the floor.
Coach, you spoke about the emotions of an arena. The crowd against Auburn was pretty unbelievable here. How much will a crowd like that impact this game tomorrow night?
Man, I said this 7 years ago, and I'm going to say it again. If you go around the country and you find the 10 programs that have the best home record, you're also going to find probably the 10 programs that have the best home court environment in the country. You got to have that. You can't come out as a home team to an empty arena and be excited. It deflates your team. When you're the visiting team, we went out to LSU 2 years ago. There's no one at the game. There's nobody, literally, no fans. There's not a media member at the game. That's how empty the place was. We were up 22-3 from the jump ball. It gives the visiting team an extra lift, and it deflates the home team. And we over the first 5 years, we created a home court environment. That's why our team became such a good team. That's why our team has won home games. It was good to see the fans that come out there early and come out and be loud and aggressive like the way they were against Auburn. And I hope they do the same thing tomorrow. We need to play well, obviously, and we need every break and every ounce of energy from everybody to help our guys out.
Coach, you mentioned a little bit earlier just about some of the road struggles, but you're 3-0 at home in the league, and you've beaten 2 ranked teams in that time span. Has this group learned what it takes to play at home? Have they handled that, kind of going off of what you just told Matt there?
Yeah, well, we're not getting outshot 128-57 at home. That's for starters. But we've pretty much had the same 9 guys in practice every day for a while. So we've been able to make progress as a team. We haven't had the in and out that we had the first 6-7 weeks of the season as far as practice and games and repetitions, and so it's allowed us to make progress. And then going to Florida and winning that first game, it kind of allowed our guys to take a deep breath and say, "Wow, we can actually do this." And it's allowed us to, for the most part, go out there and play fairly well. We started playing better before Wyoming, but we were so bad going into Wyoming that we played the way we prepared, and and then we played pretty well after Wyoming. We just couldn't get the same bodies in practice, and it was hard to see. It was hard to attain the reward for getting better, which is winning games, because of the constant changing of people. We just got to keep taking it one day at a time. But winning gives you confidence. Winning gets everyone believing what we're doing works, and that's what's happened to this team. And like that game against Oklahoma State. We lose sight of things sometimes. We're talking about a team that I know they had some guys got thrown off the team or whatever. Only one actually mattered. The other guys were irrelevant. You're talking about a team that beat LSU 18 or something like that. You're talking about a team that's had unbelievable wins, that went into West Virginia and won, had Texas Tech on the ropes, had up 20 2 nights earlier against Oklahoma and just let it slip. Baylor, who's playing as well as anyone in that league, they were up 14 against Baylor and just lost at the wire. The Baylor game and our game were actually almost identical the way the game flowed. Baylor just made some shots at the end and probably didn't get outshot 29-9 from the foul line, but it is what it is. We're in a better place You know, I know we're going to play well tomorrow. I just hope we play well enough to win.
John and then Colin.
Hassani said at least he can take some comfort in that this isn't a foreign number one team. He's played them a lot. You guys know them about as well as any team in this league. How much can that help you guys in preparing for a roster that you know? And what were those games like last year? Can you remember? I know they're in single-digit possession games.
Yeah, we're very similar on how our teams are built and style of play. So it's kind of like going against yourself in practice a little bit. Both of those games last year were hard. Like the one here at home, we should have won. If you remember, that was in that stretch of games that kind of determined our postseason fate. At the time, we didn't think about that, but when the season ends, you figure out where did it get away from us. It was Tennessee at home, Texas Tech at home, Mississippi State at home. Bang, bang, bang. And, you know, and all three of those games are games that there to win, and we just couldn't close it. The one over there, they kind of got away from us a little bit, and then we cut it to one, and they ran a play for Grant Williams, and he makes a jump hook to make a three, and then we missed a three at the buzzer. You know, think about Florida, you know, when we played them to go to the Final Four. That was an experienced team we had. If you play the unknown Wisconsin that next game, there's an uncertainty in your mind that you don't know, wow, can we do this? Can't we do this? How good are they, or are we good enough? I don't care who you are. There's always that uncertainty when you don't know the opponent. When you know the opponent, there's a peace of mind in your head, like, okay. So that team, I didn't know we were going to beat Florida, but I knew that the guys in the locker room felt comfortable because we had played them and had beaten them. So there's a place of comfort, like we're not going to get wrapped up in the moment or the opponent. There's a confidence that if we play this way, we can win. I think the returning players have that in place, just like their players know that if they play the right way, they can beat us. It's same deal, doesn't change. The question is the first-year guys. You know, are they going to get swallowed up with the voices of everyone that gets to them, telling them like, wow, number one team, no one. So now they're sitting there saying, holy cow, we're playing number one team in the country. You hope that they can go back from the Virginias and the Michigans of the world and find a place of peace in their preparation for the game.
Two things, but you just kind of touched on it. How do you guard against younger players getting swept up in that? Does that fall on the coaches to do something, the leaders on the team to kind of figure that out? And with Justin, you mentioned the fact that he's running a little bit more on the treadmill. Are you comfortable or confident that he's going to be able to get into practice sometime soon?
Yeah, I thought he was going to get in practice this week. He's doing non-live things right now. Like if we dummy offense, he gets out there. But we're going to hold him off from live contact and all that till next week. And then I believe that, you know, my high school coach said to me when he hired me back in 1985, and I was 19 years old, and I didn't know my name, I didn't know life, I didn't know anything. But I'll never forget something he said to me back then. He said, Frank, always remember, the most important person in the room is always the head coach. I'll never forget him saying that to me. And if you look around the history of sports, successful teams, successful organizations, a lot of players come and go, but that one voice, that one person is, you know, whether in basketball, it's Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, In football, obviously Belichick. A lot of people come and go. The most important voice in the building all the time is the head coach. I didn't know what he meant by that at the time. Well, as I've gone in my journey, if I'm consistent with how I handle things, then the players will be consistent with how they prepare for things. You know, if I come into practice, hey, we got to be real good today because those guys are real good and rah, 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 but I didn't do that against Vanderbilt, then the players start playing the next opponent based on my mode. I don't know if that makes sense or not. And my whole thing has always been just be the same. And the best way to prepare players for whatever stage, whatever moment, is for me to prepare the same way every game, to come in and give them You know, doesn't mean I'm not going to be a little bit more on edge because we didn't play the right way. But I'm not going to be more on edge because of who the next opponent is. That makes sense? So my consistency, I think, has a lot to do with that. And it's kind of the way I was prepared when I was a kid, and it's kind of the way I try to prepare our teams.
Last question, Andrew.
Back to the preparation questions you got, that you can kind of almost get a sense of how your team's going to perform beforehand. It was last Sunday, right, when you came in the office and guys were already kind of breaking down the LSU game. You felt really good going to Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Did you sense anything yesterday at all that gives you a similar vibe?
They were good yesterday. That's why I said I think we'll play well tomorrow. Our team's grown up a lot. Our team's, we were bad again. Like LSU was really good, and we weren't very good that game. It happens sometimes. I'm not going to dwell on that. I didn't think our preparation going into Oklahoma State was very good. But it wasn't very good in comparison to what we've been like for 6 weeks. And that's what threw me out of whack. Guys were good yesterday. They care, man. You don't improve unless you care and you believe. You don't. Not in team sports. You might become a better, like I see all these, I'm going to pick on individual sports, but golf coaches and tennis coaches and all. I'm not talking about like in our school. I'm talking about for pros. Like every time a pro has a bad year, they fire the coach. You know what I mean? Like, really? Like, that coach really had that negative impact on your ability to be the number 3 player in the world instead of the number 5 player in the world? I mean, I don't understand that. That's just me. I always got a kick, Tiger Woods' swing coaches. I'm like, wow, really? And he was winning majors before swing coaches were popular. It's, but it is what it is. I get it. But I think in team sports, you got to keep a whole lot of personalities in the right place, and you got to have a lot of guys rowing in the same direction. It's not about an individual person. It's about collecting a group of personalities, and during the course of challenges and things going right and not going right, figure out a way to stay connected. That's how your team gets better. You don't do that unless people care and they believe in what you're doing. This team's gotten better. Has it gotten good enough for everyone to be pleased? Don't know, and to be honest with you, I really don't care. But it's gotten good enough to where I go home every night and I'm really proud of these guys. I just hope that we keep doing that and we stay the course and we don't give in to a win or a loss in a bad or good way. All right, guys.